Dating in 2016 is just the worst. With the advent of online dating, finding dates and going out for millennials has become more and more impersonal and shallow. Back in the old days, dating was so much better, wasn't it? Or was it? Modern romance has been completely revamped with online dating. This type of matching up involves going onto a website or app and creating a profile where you may put in your information, put up a couple pictures of yourself, and then you are free to go window shop for whomever you'd like to meet up with. This means that people are basically passing judgment on a snapshot of a life, with the primary focus being on looks. This approach to meeting possible significant others can be detached and superficial. As a result, these sites and apps are thought to be used more for hooking up than actual dating. Because of this reputation, dating sites have been criticized for ruining so-called traditional ways of dating. These traditional dating trends that are so highly revered can be traced back to around the 1950s, where the youth started to set new standards for how a young person should find a potential date. Dating in the 1950s seems so simple. It was the time of courting, where a boy would boldly approach a girl and ask her on a date. Or actually, more often, they would call over the phone. Then the two of them would go out to whatever cute activity the boy had planned, and they'd return before their respective bedtimes. That's at least what the videos from that era would have you think. The videos about dating from the 1950s are iconic, and almost everyone has seen one, or at least a parody of one. Their cheesy teen actors and semi-ridiculous scenarios are incredibly charming and awkward and can easily remind people of the sex ed videos that they had to watch in grade school. The fact of the matter is that the image of dating from the 1950s that we can see from these videos are actually adult views being pushed onto the teens of the time to try and make them follow a preconceived model of dating, and to warn them that there would be consequences if the model was broken. The truth is, dating in the 1950s involved more than just asking a girl out and shaking her hand in the end. It also had things called petting and necking and the dreaded parking. Petting is loosely defined as physical contact not involving the union of genitals, but with the deliberate attempt to evoke arousal. And this is even distinguished from heavy petting, which some could argue is borderline intercourse. Many men back in the 50s often thought petting as a requirement as a part of the date, especially if they had spent money on the girl that night, which they often had to do, as splitting the bill was not acceptable back then. Necking is sometimes labeled kissing, sometimes labeled as a caress above the neckline. And finally, we come to parking. Every young couple wanted someplace away from adults and parents to experiment sexually. And with the popularization of automobiles, cars became that place. It was quite common for two people to find themselves suddenly pulled over somewhere. And everyone knew that parking happened, and they also knew that they couldn't stop it from happening. People were going to do what they were going to do, and you couldn't just not allow people to drive at certain times of the night. In this way, the 1950s set many dating standards that carry through even to today. Men still frequently ask girls out on dates, and are still often expected to pay for them. So is dating in 2016 really all that different from dating in the 1950s? Sure, there are some superficial details that change, but at the core, the two are very similar. To ask people on dates, you use a phone. The people going on the date still often go out to eat or do something fun together, and there's still an assumption that it will end with sex. So is online dating really the thing ruining dating? Or does it just make it easier for us to do what we've been doing all this time anyway?